Hello, I'm Edward Crooks, and this is me, following a hot air balloon through the British countryside with a lawn roller. This is an attempt to understand the relationship between the movement of the air, the landscape below, and the mythologies that stem from this. It is illustrative of a methodology that I hope to explore in Venice, a location so deeply affected both by local natural phenomena and global man-made activity. My personal fascination with the wind goes back a very long way. Here I am as a child, again, chasing hot air balloons with my family, who had a weekend job collecting balloons from their unpredictable landing points in a van. An example of a complex negotiation between the constantly changing paths of the air and the prescribed routes of the earth. These balloons are, to me, a wonderful example of human interaction with the wind, representing a localised understanding of the weather entirely different to contemporary modes of transport, and one which, in Venice's case, has maybe not always been used for good. In particular, my interest in the wind lies in its relationship to the earth below, be it the connection of a sailing ship to the waves or of a balloon to the varying terrain below it. And of course, no more clearly is this illustrated than in Barbari's map of Venice, showing in minute detail the differing conditions of ocean brought upon by the mythical classical winds. The map's both a practical navigational guide and a poetic means of understanding greater forces. The walk that I show you here was completed to further explore this relationship, following the irregular path of a balloon through the landscape. In the moments of friction, where the path of the sky meets a boundary on the ground, new objects and solutions have to be made, such as a bridge over a ditch, a ladder over a wall, or wearing more resilient footwear. Together, these contribute to the built environment, creating a new language of vernacular objects on the ground and making visible a direct response to the wind above. And it's this approach that I'd be delighted to bring to Venice. Working closely with Craig Martin and the team at Ca' Foscari, I hope to continue a rich history of mythological perceptions of the wind in Venice, understanding how it shaped and forged the city as it is, and creating new objects and interventions that reflect this. Having trained as an architect, I typically work across media, from illustration to processes of making, craft, installation, and film. This approach is demonstrated here, where the walk I have just shown you is described through a room filled with objects, all created as byproducts of the simple act of following a balloon in the wind. In Venice, I'd be enthusiastic to further this approach, developing an archive of new cultural artefacts, from drawings and maps to tools, instruments, crafted objects, all generated from a localised interpretation of the wind. Individually, these objects will be available for people to engage with, whilst collectively they'll reveal an overall narrative to be developed over the residency through film. My process often involves close collaboration with local craftspeople. Here, on a project completed at Castle Drogo, I worked very closely with the local stonemason Ben Martin to understand the qualities of the local granite from which the original castle was built. In Venice, I'd intend to use my time to forge relationships with local craftspeople, from printmakers to glassblowers, to help in the creation of these new objects. The work I create is always part of a bigger story, from a suspended installation at the RIBA that reveals a vast spire inside, to the renovation of a public street that implies a grand civic architecture, to an installation at Castle Drogo that tells the story of an imaginary building above. Working in Venice, I would hope to continue this approach, furthering the fascinating mythology of wind in the city through new stories. The proposal I make here is a loose framework, showing you how I would hope to work in Venice. The form of the objects I propose, what they represent, and the story they tell will all be derived from a rich and enthusiastic engagement with a city that I dearly love.